I'm going to do another video on imagining myself talking to a supporter of a particular candidate as someone who thinks that it's important that we all consider Yang and consider what Yang might have to do with the equation of the political sphere and DNC and world. That made zero sense, but that's okay. Yang, I think he's important, and there's another candidate who I think is important. There's actually a few that I think are important, that have important things to say, that have important implications on the world that we're facing right now. And I mean, it's really you guys. I'm Canadian, so I gotta take my foot off the desk. Tulsi Gabbard. Sorry, slow to the punch. I think Tulsi is very interesting and important because she is saying a couple things that are really important in the world we have right now. Agree, disagree? There's a lot of hysterics going on. There's a lot of narrative. There's a lot of grandstanding. There's not a lot of substance coming out of a lot of the common sense places, the places that we would think of as common sense, or used to think of that. I mean, I think the most guilty, sort of obvious one for Tulsi and supporters and Bernie supporters and Trump supporters would be CNBC, MSNBC, CNN, all these ones who we think of, or we used to think of as really pretty solid. More and more of us are being convinced that they are bought and sold for by corporations, and sometimes that's fine. Maybe I don't know. It's not always having terrible results, but that we don't want to be bought and sold for by some sort of military industrial complex. And then we need rational thinking. We need to steer this ship mindfully. And I think that Tulsi supporters feel that way. I think she's saying some really important things about communication from the left to the right, about respecting both our opponents' foreign and interior. You know, she's showing more respect to the Republicans and if she can, to other Democrats than most of the candidates. I think maybe besides Andrew Yang, the two of them, I'm pretty sure 90% of Tulsi supporters are aware of Andrew Yang and would have him as one of the two people that they would probably support if they didn't support her. Right? I could be completely wrong, but I'm thinking, some of them go to Bernie and some of them come to Yang. And we're coming close to the point where we want to keep Tulsi in the conversation as long as possible and as vividly as possible, right? Because she's saying important things. And that's what Andrew Yang is doing. They're both saying important things. They're shifting the Overton window. They're talking about things that we wouldn't be talking about otherwise. And they're both talking about using their brains and ideas and a progressive future to try to steer this ship better than we've been steering it. I think Tulsi's, she's got integrity. I think she's smart. I think she's clever. I think she's strong. Like, she's really got a lot of awesome characteristics, and I really think Tulsi's really interesting. I've flipped back and forth between Tulsi and Yang, but I've tended to feel like most of the time Yang was a little more viable, that he had a little more to say, and that by supporting Yang, there's more that we can get done. So I'm not ultra convinced that Yang will have the kind of strength that Tulsi has when it comes to foreign policy. But I am hopeful by the things that he said, right? Like he's saying most of the right things. He's talking about, using your brain and putting processes in place and following the rule of law when it comes to conflicts and having consensus and not just going off and, being in a rush to topple regimes. And so that's great, right? But I think for Tulsi supporters, they're looking for a little bit more something. And I get that. But at a certain point, it seems she's fading, right? I mean, unless she ends up as a VP candidate, but who You know, I mean, it couldn't be Warren or Klobuchar. It just can't be. It can't be Biden. It can't, like, it's just the way the DNC breaks down. It's not going to be possible, right? So there's only two people who could choose her, and that would be Bernie, or that would be, okay, well, there's one other person I guess could choose her, which is kind of funny, or Yang. But the other person who could choose her, I mean, in a weird world where somehow, you know, Pence didn't exist, is Trump maybe could choose her, but that's insane. I know, it's just a funny thought, because I mean, she has, the media sort of made it out that they're both like Russian assets or something like that, right? Which is so whatever. I don't know, just a funny thing to think about. I think she's a person of character, and we need that. That's amazing. But I also think Andrew Yang's a person of character. And so as Tulsi supporters are starting to consider, you know, which way they're going to go, I think if you look at maybe some of the scary stuff that's come out of Veritas Project, whisper it, so maybe no one hears what I'm saying. But some of the things that are coming out of there are a little scary. I mean, I don't think we want to like make a big deal of them too much, but I think as we're trying to make an intelligent decision, I think a lot of us would be looking for a group of people and a group of thinkers and a leader who is really committed to truth, to having real conversations, to using technology and information and data to rejigger our economy, to change things around, to manipulate the dials in a way that will produce the best result for the people. And Yang is really about making a good result for the people, you know, not just looking at GDP, not just looking at narrative-driven information, but using the actual information to try to create a better world. And I think most of our Tulsi supporters, you know, can get on board with that. And I think that he's probably the right choice. And you know, I just think that at some point, the things that he's saying, you know, about legalizing marijuana, about, you know, prison reform, about, you know, taking our healthcare in the right direction, but doing it in a competitive fashion. Use your brain as you kind of try and do it. About, you know, putting money into actual communities and trying to like create a system that produces funds in the proper way, and being able to manipulate that tax system to, you know, take more money from the places that you strategically want to take it, and making sure that even the poorest communities have a base amount of income and people, and that they're not just taken over by poverty. I mean, I think this is the way. I think the world is changing. I think it's changing really fast, and I think it's important for people to see that we need a leader who understands technology, who understands the way the world's changing, who's willing to use data, science, information to start to actually steer the wheel in wise, measured fashions. You know, that it's not going to just be about me screaming at my side, screaming, yeah, I want this, and the other side screaming, I want this, but about us having real conversations and about us actually making decisions that we think are right. And you know, sometimes that might mean being more conservative on something, and sometimes that might mean being way more left on other things, and it could mean lots of things. But it can't just be a battle about, you know, I think all your supporters are racists, and I think all your supporters are crazy lunatics, or I mean, you know, the kinds of things that get said on both sides, right? I don't think we want to be caught up in just attacking each other on both sides. We need to start having a conversation, and he's the man who can have that conversation. He's the man who will lead to conversation whether he wins or not. We need to shift the window. We need to make it clear to the world that clear thinking people want to have a voice, and that we want clear thinking, human-centered decisions. And that's an important message to get out there as far as he can get, right? So, like, I don't necessarily think that there's anyone that's likely to beat Trump. I don't really think Sanders does. Biden, I don't think there's a chance that Biden can win. Clinton terrifies a certain percentage of the population. I mean, there's some more moderate, maybe someone rises up, but right now, he's the one who will change the conversation. And to start with, that's what we need. We need to change the conversation.